"Hope, put the statue back where it belongs," Joseph said, without looking at his daughter, "and sit down and draw or play on the computer. You're distracting me."
"But,"
Hope began to sniff loudly and resentfully,
"you said you'd let me stay at your work today, and now you won't let me touch anything."
"Hope, this is Mummy's reward."
"Really? What for? Dad, you always promise to tell me about her, but you always forget."
The small blonde girl reluctantly put the statue back in its place and returned to the table. Her blue eyes sparkled like stars in the sky, and the smile playing on her lips gave her face an innocent yet mischievous look. Her wavy hair, like golden threads, framed her face, giving it a special softness and charm. Hope was like a delicate, beautiful flower in the field. Joseph Witt, the owner of the hotel, had been angry since morning. The nanny had broken her arm and was now on sick leave, and Joseph categorically disliked the replacements offered by the agency. He didn't have time to babysit his daughter either. He had a contract signing and a business trip to Milan coming up. Usually he could send Hope to stay with his mother, but he had sent her to a sanatorium. What terrible timing.
"Mr. Witt," the secretary knocked on the door. "Mr. Hale is here to see you."
Mr. Hale, Joseph's deputy, entered the office. He was a 70-year-old man with greying brown hair. Small and energetic, he resembled a gentleman beetle from the Thumbelina. Mr. Hale's face was furrowed with deep wrinkles, which conventionally testified to wisdom and life experience. But Mr. Hale himself said his wrinkles came not from wisdom and experience, but from a cheerful disposition. "If you don't have wrinkles, it means you've laughed too little," he used to say. "Hello, Joseph. I need to discuss some issues with you." From Mr. Hale's tone alone, Joseph realized that all his plans were unraveling at breakneck speed. He groaned softly through his teeth. What happened? The man gave Hope a meaningful look. Mr. Hale tried not to discuss business in front of little Hope. Joseph nodded and called the secretary over the intercom. "Adelia, I need you for a personal matter. Please take Hope to the kitchen and make sure she eats. Take about 40 minutes, if you can." "Sure, Mr. Witt," replied the secretary. "Hope, go with Adelia and have lunch. If you'd like, you can also go to the playground."
"Dad, I don't want to eat."
Hope tried to be naughty, but seeing the look on her father's face, she didn't argue. Adelia Schwartz was a slender, elegant 50-year-old woman with short blonde hair. She wore stylish pantsuits, regularly went to the gym, and smoked exactly 3 cigarettes a day. She didn't allow herself any more. Her face always looked fresh and well-groomed, with no visible signs of fatigue, stress, or impending old age. She looked at everyone sternly, like a teacher during an exam, and almost never smiled. Before Adelia appeared, Joseph had gone through several secretaries. He hadn't been able to get along with any of them. All the secretaries had stared at him with languid, devoted eyes, worn short skirts, and tried every possible way to get him into bed. They didn't know which side of the computer to turn on, and the words "document management" horrified them to no end. When Adelia Schwartz appeared, Joseph hired her with some apprehension, not really hoping for much. But he was wrong. Little Hope was afraid of her and called her the Snow Queen. The nickname stuck, and soon the entire hotel staff began to call her that as well. When the door closed behind the girl and the woman, Joseph sighed and turned to Mr. Hale with a look of impending doom. "Well, spit it out. Don't drag it out." "Our hotel manager quit his job." "Quit his job? How?" Joseph didn't understand. "Just like that. Yesterday, everything was normal, and today he handed in his resignation. I tried to persuade him, but he decided to quit anyway. Did you offer him a raise? Of course I did. He said it wasn't about the money. I think it was something at home, but his resignation is bad timing. The height of the season is coming.
Joseph leaned back in his chair.
Why? Why, if something happens, does it have to happen in all spheres at once? Ben, in a week, 2 at most, will have to find a new manager. Send all candidates directly to me.
The hotel was situated on the shore of the sea, surrounded by lush greenery and vibrant flowers year-round. The warm, humid climate of the southern region was conducive to rest and relaxation. The hotel's architecture incorporated modern trends, offering guests comfort and coziness. Visitors were greeted by a spacious lobby with high ceilings, decorated in neutral tones, and enormous panoramic windows that provided a breathtaking view of the sea stretching to the horizon. All rooms boasted spacious bathrooms, comfortable beds, and thick curtains that blocked out daylight. Joseph personally inspected the convenience of the shower cabins, slept in randomly selected rooms, and checked the quality of newly purchased linens. The hotel occupied extensive grounds, featuring a restaurant, spa centre, heated swimming pool, and sauna for complete relaxation. Outdoor enthusiasts could enjoy a range of activities: boat rides, cycling in the neighbourhood, and hiking in picturesque mountainous areas. Joseph personally vetted all these amenities. Mr. Hale often joked that Joseph should test even the new tanning machine or scooter. But Joseph knew and loved his hotel intimately, down to the last screw. It was his wife's brainchild too. Joseph's office was decorated in a modern style, with elements of luxury and refinement. His wife had insisted that the office should reflect his status and professionalism. Thus, Joseph acquired a spacious desk of natural wood, with smooth lines and minimalist design, a powerful computer with a large monitor, and an ergonomic chair for comfortable work. Diplomas and awards adorned the walls, attesting to Joseph's success in the hospitality industry. There was a sofa in the corner with soft cushions, which never stayed in place. In the other corner of the office stood a small bar with an assortment of alcohol. Joseph disliked alcohol and knew little about it. He had never learned to appreciate wine and had no time for it. Along the wall were cabinets for storing documents, books, and Joseph's personal belongings. His wife was gone, yet everything in his office remained unchanged. "Mr. Witt! Mr. Witt! Hope has been taken away by ambulance!"
Joseph turned pale. His vision blurred, and he asked Adelia with trembling lips, "What happened?"
Adelia whispered in a choked voice, "She was sitting at the table while I discussed meal options with the cook. A few minutes later, when I returned, she was gone. I frantically searched the entire hotel for her, only to see an ambulance departing from the premises. It turned out that Hope had run to the playground, slipped, and fell into the pool. There was no one around at the time, and if it hadn't been for the maid who was on her way to the laundry room at that moment, we called you, but you must have had your phone on silent." Joseph's heart began to pound frantically, as if trying to escape his chest. Joseph broke into a cold sweat and trembled with fear. His vision darkened, and he felt nauseous. "Hush, hush," he told himself between spasms, clenching his mouth with a huge icy palm. "Keep your temper in check. You're a man, control yourself." But the thickening fear had already crawled up his nape and seeped into his very core. All his senses were on edge, every sharp sound causing panic and the urge to flee the office, where fear had enveloped everything in its web. He wanted to smash or break something, so that the icy terror and rage would finally find release and stop throbbing in his temples. Joseph crossed his office in a few giant strides and stopped in front of Adelia. So, who went with her to the hospital? The man narrowed his eyes and stared at the young woman, barely containing the emotions bubbling up inside him. Mr. Witt, Hope was saved by the cleaning lady, Amaris Turner. The ambulance team said they went to the first clinical hospital. The hospital waiting room reeked of medicine and grief. The lights flickered, making Joseph feel like he was in a horror movie. Paintings adorned the walls, bright forests, fields and rivers, vivid reminders of life beyond the hospital. As if to underscore that outside, the endless circle of life continued. Yet even these pictures couldn't brighten the grim reality surrounding him. A nurse in a white coat chatted on the phone, oblivious to Joseph. She discussed the purchase of a new 43-inch TV with an unseen interlocutor. Joseph leaned over and rapped his knuckles on the desk. Hope Witt, which ward? The girl who fell in the pool. The nurse, a stern woman of about 60, furrowed her brow and grumbled with regal displeasure. So, you've shown up. And the mother? Why didn't she come? Why have children if you can't supervise them? You couldn't even be trusted with a cat. Your girl is in intensive care. The doctor will be here soon to tell you everything. Go wait in the corridor. Don't interfere with my work. Are you kidding me? You're not working currently, Joseph growled. I need to see my daughter and you're standing here doing nothing. Call the doctor. I'm not leaving until you do. I'm waiting. His voice boomed like thunder, shattering the hospital's silence. Joseph's hands trembled with rage. He felt his pulse quicken and his face flush. His lips compressed into a thin line. If looks could kill, the woman before him would be a pile of ash. He was never allowed into the intensive care unit. He argued at length with the nurse, threatened to file complaints, and demanded to see the attending physician. But the doctor was in surgery, so Joseph had to pace the hospital corridor for 2 hours, occasionally glaring at the nurse. She, however, was hardened to such displays, seeing people like Joseph, blinded by grief, crushed and disoriented every day. She was immune to others' pain. Then, an elderly woman appeared in the hallway and began scrubbing the floors. Joseph wanted to scowl at her, but when she looked at him, she said unexpectedly softly, "Don't worry, there's a wonderful doctor on shift today. He'll do everything possible and impossible for your child. He's a very good man, this doctor." These words didn't immediately register with Joseph, but gradually, piercing through his anger and fear, his self-recrimination and despair, they reached his consciousness. A flicker of hope stirred in his soul. The man nodded gratefully to the woman. Finally, a man appeared in the hallway. He was tall with grey hair, fine wrinkles on his face and deep-set eyes. His white coat was meticulously pressed and spotless. "Are you Mr. Witt?" The doctor's voice was low and hoarse. "Yes, that's me." "Your girl is very lucky. It's rare in cases like this. Your daughter will be in the intensive care unit for 2 days, and if everything goes well, we'll transfer her to neurology and observe her for a week. These situations often result in cerebral hypoxia, which never fully resolves, but our prognosis is good. You could say it's a miracle." Joseph, momentarily drained, sank back into his chair. "Thank you, doctor. Thank you very much. You should thank your assistant, too. You can take her from the hospital, by the way. Just bring her some things, or at least buy a robe from the stall over there." Joseph, unable to think of anything but his daughter, at first didn't understand what the doctor was talking about. "What things? What assistant? My only assistant is Adalia Schwartz. She is at her work now." "I see. I meant the young woman who saved your hope." The doctor looked at Joseph sympathetically. "Ah, yes, thank you." A few minutes later, Joseph was holding out a bundle to Amaris Turner, feeling a bit embarrassed and confused. "I bought you some things. Here, sorry I couldn't find anything more suitable in the hospital stall." Amaris smiled weakly, shook her head, and stared at Joseph with tired eyes. "At least they're dry. My clothes are damp."
"Get changed, I'll take you home."
"And what about the girl?"
"We're not allowed to see Hope yet."
In the car, Joseph relaxed. The chills had stopped and his hands were no longer cold.
"Amaris, tell me, how much do I owe you?"
The girl looked at him confused. "What do you mean? You owe me?"
"Name the amount. I'll pay it to you."
Amaris shook her head. "You're talking nonsense. It's not even pleasant to listen to. How can a child's life be measured in money?" Tears glistened in Amaris's eyes, and her young face contorted with hurt. She frowned, looking like a wet sparrow. Just like Hope, Joseph thought unexpectedly. All her feelings are right there on her face. The thought lifted his spirits. "Don't take offense, I just want to be grateful. Amaris, how did this happen?" "Why do you need to know, Mr. Witt? Everything turned out okay."
"I must know.
You see? I must." Amaris didn't understand why these gruesome details were necessary. She didn't want to relive it. The motionless child on the water's surface, floating like a forgotten porcelain doll with wide open eyes. Amaris couldn't remember how she'd gotten into the water or pulled Hope out. Her hands seemed to work independently of her brain. She performed CPR and chest compressions. People screamed around her. Adalia wailed. Some called for a doctor, others for an ambulance. "I did everything automatically. My mind was blank," finally Amaris said. "It all happened so fast, yet it felt like an eternity. After a while, Hope started breathing weakly, and she began to vomit. Once I was sure her heart was working, I held her and waited for the ambulance. You know, it arrived quickly, within 5 minutes of the call. We were lucky."
"Yes, we were lucky,"
Joseph repeated softly, lighting a cigarette. The car drove them through nighttime city, blanketed by an endless, starry sky. They sped past noisy cafes and sidewalks filled with tourists, despite the off-season. The scent of the sea and blooming southern flowers wafted through the open window. The faint sound of the waves on the beach mingled with the car's hum and a distant church bell. Somewhere, a violin played. Lulled by the engine's monotonous rumble, Amaris began to doze off.
"Are you studying?"
Joseph attempted small talk, though he didn't feel like it. He wanted to drop off this girl and return to the hospital as soon as possible. "Yes, by correspondence. Hotel business and human resources."
"How do you like it?"
"I haven't decided yet." Amaris shrugged, blushing for some reason. "I guess I like it. It'll be clearer after I do my internship, though that's still up in the air." Joseph glanced at the girl. She's so young. How old is she? 22, 24? She blushes so charmingly. A go-getter and quite a beauty. But hers wasn't the trendy, glamorous beauty plastered across billboards and flyers. It was a quiet beauty, soft skin with faint veins, a slight blush, and tousled blonde hair. Since his wife's death, Joseph hadn't paid attention to women. It wasn't that he had ever paid much attention, but now they all seemed the same to him, like cars on a factory assembly line. "Amaris, where did you learn first aid? I doubt it was at the university." "Took a course last summer. Dad always said you need to know how to save a life in an emergency. It's crucial to know how to stop bleeding properly, what to do for cardiac arrest or choking until medics arrive. We learned the correct responses for accidents and natural disasters. But in practice, it was much scarier."
"I'm glad you were there and prepared."
"Oh no," the girl objected earnestly. "You can't be prepared for something like that. I just knew what I had to do, and I did it." Joseph arrived home late at night. Without turning on the lights, he made his way to his room. There, he yanked off his jacket and flung it aside. His clothes seemed saturated with the hospital's smell and his own despair. He took off his pants and shirt in exasperation, tossing them away like something vile. I should bag them up and take them to the laundry, he thought, but laziness won out. Joseph kicked the pile of clothes and sat on the floor. He was at a loss. Sleep eluded him. Joseph reached for the nightstand and grabbed the TV remote. The matte surface of the huge screen blinked with welcoming lights and immediately blared with cartoon voices. Hope must have left it on a children's channel. The man began switching channels mindlessly, unable to think after the day's shocks. Finally, at 3 o'clock in the morning, having drunk a mug of sweet tea, Joseph did fall asleep. His phone rang in the morning, and Joseph, eyes still closed, fumbled for it. After a long search, he finally answered the call, without looking at the screen. "Daddy, hi! They allowed me to call you." Hope! Happiness overwhelmed the man, momentarily stealing his words. "Hope, I'll be there soon. I'm so happy to hear from you." "Dad, can you bring me a chocolate bar?" The man nodded, wiping away unexpected tears. "Hope, of course I'll buy you chocolate. A mountain of chocolate." "No, Dad, you don't need a mountain. I'm allowed just a little bit." "Hope, I'll be there soon, very soon, and I'll bring you chocolate." When Joseph entered his daughter's ward, Hope was lying in the bed, her eyes shining with joy and childlike curiosity. Nearby lay a bundle wrapped with a colourful ribbon. "Daddy, did you bring this?" "No." Joseph sat next to his daughter and stared at the box with interest. "It's not from me. Someone else brought it." "Unwrap it quickly, let's take a look." Inside the box were bright lipsticks, shimmering eyeshadows, and shiny nail polishes. Hope, as if enchanted, sifted through these treasures, momentarily forgetting her father. He didn't disturb her, grateful to the unknown visitor for such a gift. Adelia must have decided to cheer up my daughter, and me at the same time, the man thought. "Dad, when will you pick me up from the hospital?" Hope asked, the smile instantly fading from her thin face. "Soon, Hope, soon. The doctors say you're almost healthy now. In a day or two, I'll be able to take you home," Joseph answered, gently putting his arm around her shoulders. "I want to go home. I'm bored here. All my toys must miss me. And Grandma misses me. And my nanny misses me too. And I haven't learned any lessons these days," Hope exclaimed, waving her arms. Joseph smiled and stroked the top of her head. "Of course, Hope. I've already prepared everything for your return. Your favourite toys and bags of new ones are waiting for you. And there'll be homemade pie and strawberry compote from your grandmother." Hope put her arms around her father's neck and snuggled into his shirt. "My granny makes the best compote, pies and buns in the world." Joseph felt warmth spread through him at these words. He hugged his daughter tighter and blinked rapidly, fighting back tears. "Hope, I love you so much." "More than ice cream?" "More than ice cream and all the chocolates in the world. You are my most precious treasure." Upon reaching home, Joseph worked on papers until evening, then drank himself to sleep. In the morning, Joseph lay in bed for a long time, then stood under the shower for ages and dressed slowly. The housekeeper had already knocked insistently on the door several times, offering mineral water or headache pills. Of course, the unfinished bottle of Jack Daniels and a lonely empty glass in the kitchen hadn't escaped her notice. This day, Joseph decided not to go to the hotel. He went for a walk instead. In the maelstrom of hectic days, Joseph had forgotten how beautiful the surrounding nature was. They lived where majestic mountains merged with the endless expanse of the sea. It was a land where time seemed to stop, then rush forward, a riot of colours and sounds, where you could ski and swim in the sea on the same day. A land of contrasts and diverse crowds. Only Joseph had long ago stopped noticing and appreciating it. "Hello, Sonny! Why aren't you calling me? Are you doing well?" His mother's call caught him on his way out of the house. "Yes, Mum." "How's Hope doing?" The last thing Joseph wanted was to tell his mother about his problems. "Mum, everything's fine." "Good, because I had a bad dream the other day." "Mum, how many times?" All right, don't get excited. I'm just worried. And you haven't called for 3 days. And your housekeeper never tells me anything. She's definitely a Pisces." Joseph never believed in bad dreams, horoscopes, or the like. He considered it nonsense and got angry when his mother pestered him with astrological news from some fortune teller. After conversation with his mother, Joseph wandered aimlessly through the streets and alleys for a long time, when suddenly he noticed a kitten sitting on the side of the road. It was small and defenceless, and Joseph suddenly felt very sorry for it. The kitten huddled against the curb, staring at the world with big frightened eyes. The man squatted down and reached out his hand. The kitten didn't recoil, but clung to his palm, seeking warmth and protection. Joseph looked around. There was no one nearby. Most likely the poor thing had been abandoned. Just a couple of days ago, Joseph would have walked on by. He wasn't cruel. He, just like many people, preferred not to notice. The man bent down and picked up the kitten. "Well, Shaggy, I hope I won't regret this." Joseph realized it would be a responsibility, a care, and to some extent an inconvenience, but he couldn't leave the little one on the street. Suddenly he stared at the building across in bewilderment. What a coincidence! That's the house of that girl, Amaris Turner. "Mr. Witt?" An amazed voice sounded behind him at that very moment. "Oh, hello, Amaris. I wanted to consult you. Decided to give a kitten to Hope. She's been asking for a long time, but I didn't allow it. What do you think of the idea?" Joseph felt like a complete idiot, because he couldn't think of anything more plausible. The young woman looked perplexed, but managed to pull herself together. "I think it's a great idea, but this little one needs to be seen by a veterinarian first before. I'll help you if you like." Amaris doubted that Joseph knew a single veterinary clinic, much less how to set up a cat house. They took a cab to the veterinary clinic. The vet quickly examined the kitten, prescribed vitamins, and then told them to return in a couple of weeks. Then they spent a long time meticulously choosing a food, bed, litter box, collar, and scratching post. The kitten periodically began to mew, and Joseph grew nervous. It reminded him of his past life, when he had nothing, when he had to get up in the dark for work and endure an hour-long subway ride to the other end of the capital, dreaming of warmth and the sea in a stuffy subway car. When was that? 15 years ago, but it seemed like a lifetime ago. He and his wife had dreamed of the good life, the gentle sea and the bright sun. They used to admire the moon and walk hand in hand on slushy sidewalks of the city. He called her 5 times a day, and she called him 10. Everything then was simple, bright and beautiful, and life seemed very, very long. Then came Hope, their 3 kilograms of screaming happiness. Soon after, they moved south, lived by the sea, and began to build their bright future. And then everything changed. Neither the best clinics nor renowned doctors could save his wife. That's probably when Joseph lost the ability to enjoy the sun, good weather and simple things. At home, Amaris and Joseph were met by a disgruntled housekeeper.
"Mr. Witt, why do you need it? It'll climb the curtains and chew on the flowers. And fleas again."
"We bought a flea collar." Joseph laughed out loud. He was in good spirits. Hope would soon be home and start squealing with joy that she now had a pet. She would carry it around the neighbourhood, call her grandmother to brag, and secretly put it in her bed so that no one wouldn't see it. He glanced at Amaris. The woman smiled too. She looked good today, fresh and rested. Her skin glowed with health. Her hair was tucked into a high ponytail, and her eyes were clear and bright. There was a different person in front of him today, and he liked that other person. Amaris wasn't trying to flirt with him. She was simply enjoying the day off, basking in the sun. "Amaris, you've been a great help. I'm a bit of a novice when it comes to pets." "Oh, I've been bringing home all sorts of animals since I was a little girl. My mum used to scold me a lot, but then we'd go together to foster another foundling." Joseph shrugged uncertainly. "You have a kind heart. Thank you for your help." He drove her home, and on the way back he realised that he liked her very much. He hadn't liked anyone in a long time, and now he liked Amaris. He considered himself too old for love stories and romantic relationships. Joseph was sure that after his wife's death, something inside him had petrified forever and would never be the same. He was wrong. It seemed that he had fallen in love with Amaris in the hospital corridor, when she sat down next to him, excited and dishevelled. "What a fool you are," Joseph said to himself. "You've got a daughter in the hospital, no nanny, no hotel manager, business trip is ahead, and you're dreaming of some romantic ramblings." But it was such a forgotten warm feeling that Joseph gave up on everything. He couldn't focus on the road, though. His thoughts kept coming back to Amaris. She had a beautiful figure, straight shoulders, a narrow waist and smooth legs, an infectious laugh and ambition. At this thought, he took his phone and called. "Mr. Hale, I have an idea. Why don't we appoint Amaris as acting manager? It'll be good practice for her and for us." A pause to find an experienced manager. "What do you think?" "I think you're overheated in the sun. I'll call an ambulance to check if you've got sunstroke." "Joseph, what kind of employee is she? She's still green. A manager is not a store clerk. A hotel manager is responsible for the overall management of the hotel, including staff organisation, quality control of guest services, development and implementation of hotel strategy, financial and budget management, maintenance of safety standards, and compliance with the law. They also handle conflict resolution, ensure a high level of guest service, and maintain customer satisfaction. Need I go on?" Later in the hotel, Mr. Hale paced the office and continued to argue with Joseph. "You know better than I do how much there is to know and to be able to do. How long has she been with us? A couple of months? Yes, she's good, she's promising, but that's no reason to act rashly. What about our regular customers and the suppliers? No, this is a bad idea, Joseph." "Ben, you're reasoning as if I'm going to give her a hotel. It's only for a few weeks. Let her put her knowledge into practice. I visited the university and inquired about her academic performance and character. The girl is intelligent, not confrontational, and studies well. Plus, we got a bonus from the city administration for taking on young specialists as interns." "Joseph, if you've already decided everything, why are you asking my advice?" Mr. Hale conceded. Joseph sensed his victory and immediately relaxed. He had been on edge throughout the entire conversation. "Ugh, I'm a grown man. worrying like a 15-year-old boy. Mr. Hale was an old friend of the Witts. He had served with and befriended Joseph's father. The two of them initially started the business together. After Joseph's father passed away, Mr. Hale sold his share to Joseph and retired. However, he couldn't remain idle. Boredom overwhelmed him. Yes, Mr. Hale was far from being a typical retiree. Amaris was polishing the mirrors in the fitness room when Adalia called out, "Amaris, Mr. Witt wants you." The girl was surprised. She ran through possible reasons why she might be needed, but all seemed implausible, even fantastic. Two men were sitting in the office. Mr. Hale winked at the bewildered Amaris and said, "Amaris, you're already in your last year of hotel management, and we've decided to offer you some internship with us. Go down to the personal department. They'll draw up a fixed-term contract for your paid internship. Don't worry, it's only for a month, and you can always ask Anna Olivieri or Adalia for help." Amaris couldn't believe her luck. No more searching, begging, or convincing executives to hire her. Despite her mix of joy and fear, she accepted the offer without hesitation. This was her chance for self-development and growth. That evening, Amaris went to the beach. Under the moonlight, the water seemed a bottomless void, the depths of unexplored cosmos, hiding millennia of mysteries. The surf's sound soothed her, carrying her soul to distant shores of peace and quiet joy. Ships on the horizon cast ghostly silhouettes on the sea's surface. Port lights twinkled. Amaris loved the night sea. It was her time when peace filled her heart, and her thoughts soared on wings of fantasy into a world of dreams and limitless possibilities. She imagined herself no longer as Amaris Turner, a mere student without connections or experience, but as an established. "Why are you wandering here alone?" Mr. Witt's voice suddenly sounded near her ear, jolting her from her reverie. "Oh, you frightened me." "I'm sorry, I didn't mean to. So why are you alone?" Amaris glanced at Joseph. Is he really that interested? She wondered. "You know, my life has taken a sharp turn this past week. I'm at a loss, and the sea has always helped me find calm." "Yes, I agree. Sometimes you need to set aside your worries and just enjoy life. I've forgotten that, unfortunately. My wife and I used to visit the sea daily, then less often. Now I barely notice it. Before, it seemed time stopped at the water's edge and all problems faded away." Joseph picked up a couple of smooth pebbles and skipped them across the water. "Let me take you home. It's getting late." She looked at Joseph intently and nodded silently. The next morning, Amaris called her friend Megan and told her everything. About the kitten, the internship, the boss, and her growing feelings for him. They'd been friends since elementary school, cherishing their bond, calling each other almost daily to share sorrows and joys. "Megan, the worst part is that I'm flattered by his attention. I'm starting to dream of impossible things, something I've never done before. He bought me a new phone to replace the one that got ruined. Now he's helped me get this internship. I know it's just his way of showing gratitude, but I can't stop these thoughts." Megan sympathized with her friend. Neither of them believed in fairy tale endings, especially for themselves. Amaris was convinced she wasn't suitable for Joseph, neither in status nor age. He was a mature man and her boss. What was she? Just an ordinary girl, in every way. Milan greeted Joseph with a noisy crowd of tourists and the intoxicating scent of jasmine. Narrow streets and squares bustled with life, and architectural masterpieces seemed to come alive under the Italian sun. Magnificent cathedrals and temples, ancient palaces and castles, museums and galleries. The city breathed history. On their first day, Joseph and Mr. Hale visited the Gothic-style Duomo Cathedral. Mr. Hale couldn't stop marvelling.
"Joseph, you should relax a bit too. Did you know one of this cathedral's relics is a nail from Christ's cross? Can you imagine?"
Joseph felt a twinge of envy. Over the years, Ben Hale hadn't lost his zest for life. He was always learning, attending computer courses, practicing yoga, and travelling whenever possible. In Milan, Mr. Hale immediately set out sightseeing, seemingly unaffected by their long-haul flight, the customs inspection, or the heat.
"Ben will be here for at least 2 weeks. You'll have time to see everything."
But Mr. Hale was unstoppable, embarking on excursions and outings every day. The next day, Joseph called his daughter.
"Hope, it's Dad. Have you had breakfast?"
Hope squealed into the phone, launching into a tale about unpalatable porridge, a strict new nanny, and a dragonfly she'd spotted in the yard. She had mentioned her grandmother visiting and scolding the kitten. "Daddy, are you coming home soon?" "Soon, my little mouse. I'll bring you the biggest teddy bear I can find." The girl snickered, and Joseph vividly imagined her wrinkling her nose, moving her lips funnily, and carefully considering her response. "No, Dad, I don't need a big one. It'll be inconvenient to carry around. And I'll definitely have to show it off to my friends and Grandma. So no, don't bring a big one. Bring a beautiful one." Joseph chatted a little more with Hope and hung up the phone. He missed his daughter. He had been away for a week. After his wife's death, Joseph couldn't recover for a long time. He couldn't work, wandering from corner to corner in his office all day, smoking excessively, unsure how to continue living. Hope saved him. She needed to be taken to kindergarten and choreography classes, to collect shells, leaves and sticks for crafts. His daughter became his lifeline, keeping him from sliding into the abyss of despair he had been falling into at breakneck speed. Joseph turned on the TV, watched the Italian news for a while longer, not understanding a word the announcer was saying. Then his thoughts drifted to Amaris, taking a different direction. He felt embarrassed to admit to himself once again that he liked her. Lately, he had been thinking about her too often, even finding her social media page. Ben Hale had been right when he said Joseph's soul would definitely thaw. If not today or tomorrow, then sometime, necessarily. And he, Joseph, would again feel like he was 17, both scared and intrigued. Joseph hadn't believed it then, but now a feeling he thought he'd long been incapable of was born again into his heart. Joseph liked this feeling, but it also frightened him. He had got used to being alone. Over the next few weeks, Joseph and Mr. Hale held negotiations with the Italian Architectural Bureau, where they discussed the design of the new hotel, agreed on a timeline, discussed the budget, and made a few revisions. All the papers were signed and it was finally time to go home. Amaris was sitting in an expensive and uncomfortable for her chair, going through the morning mail. "Amaris, haven't you forgotten? Today they're bringing samples of fabrics for tablecloths and napkins." "Okay, thanks for reminding me, Anna." Amaris pressed disconnect with her palm. More tablecloths. Not only was she afraid of blundering or saying something stupid during conversations, but she also had to make a dozen important decisions every day. "Smile, stay focused, don't be afraid. Please keep in mind everything." When she jumped into the pool behind Hope Witt, she wasn't afraid. She didn't even think. It was automatic. And now she was chickening out. It was a nasty feeling when every step seemed wrong, every decision incorrect, and every thought questioned. But beyond the threshold of the office, Amaris couldn't be weak or incompetent. She tried very hard, worked quickly, and delved into everything, doing her best to understand all the nuances and subtleties of the work. Amaris didn't allow herself an extra word or a rash gesture. And all would be fine, but Amaris couldn't get Joseph out of her head. Before, she had dreamed of a successful career, and Prince Charming hadn't had a clear outline. Now, her dreams had acquired the silhouette of Mr. Wit, his voice and his body. Joseph appeared to her as an ideal man capable of protecting his other half, someone who would understand her without words and recognize her beauty and uniqueness. In short, these were dreams of perfect relationships and romantic happiness. Of course, in life, everything was different, and Amaris understood that. Reality didn't always match fairy tale ideals. Prince Charming could turn out to be a slob who throws his things everywhere, and a pretty, elegant princess could be a domestic tyrant. Anna Olivieri had worked at the hotel almost since it opened. She was an expert of hotel business, and everyone, including Mr. Hale, knew it. Only Joseph was looking for someone else, studying dozens of resumes and diplomas. Anna was a short, chubby woman of 47. She had a symmetrical face, straight nose, high cheekbones, and well-groomed eyebrows. Her eyes were grey, clear and attentive. Anna preferred pants with blouses and jackets, and couldn't tolerate high heels, opting for comfortable and practical shoes. Anna was always as calm as a Tibetan monk, friendly and polite with guests, speaking in a clear, measured voice. Anna did her work without hurry or fuss. She was meticulous about planning her time and distributing tasks. Surprisingly, Anna Olivieri was never in a rush, yet managed everything, keeping order in her domain, and of course, she wasn't happy about Joseph's decision. Imagine putting a very young girl in charge, even for a short time. No intelligence, no imagination. However, Anna was a deeply loyal employee, and that's why she decided that the hotel's reputation shouldn't be damaged in any way and rushed to Amaris's rescue. This morning, Anna found Amaris at the restaurant. She was sitting with a sales representative who had spread out catalogues and fabric samples. Anna sat down next to her. Today she looked as impeccable as an English queen. Strict suit, light blouse, classic shoes with low heels. "Hi, Anna. As you know, we've decided to update the curtains and tablecloths." Amaris greeted Anna and turned to the seller. "What options do you have?" "We have several options for you. We can offer natural fabrics, linen and cotton. They're pleasant to the touch and always in fashion. There's also linen with ornament. It looks charming." Anna crumpled a few pieces in her hands, handed them to Amaris, and winked discreetly, saying, "It's okay. You'll learn. I think we'd be better suited with fabrics that look elegant and attractive, yet are easy to care for. Show us the mixed fabrics." The seller pulled more samples from his bag and held them out to Anna. "Blended fabrics can be a compromise between stylish looks and practicality. They combine the advantages of natural and synthetic materials. For example, polyester with cotton can be a good choice for tablecloths." "Anna," Amaris suggested, "how about we conduct a small survey among the staff? They set the tables every day and iron the napkins." Anna squinted. The idea wasn't bad. Not new, of course, but generally feasible. "Yes, Amaris, that's what we'll do." "Thank you very much. I would have been lost with these fabrics. I don't understand anything." "You're welcome. I told you I would help. We're all in the same ship together, as they say, especially since Mr. Wit is returning from Italy tomorrow." The next day, Amaris finally saw Joseph. "Amaris, you have pleasantly surprised us. No high-profile incidents, scandals or complaints. I didn't expect it, to be honest." The girl looked embarrassed. "Well, it's not really my merit. I was helped and mentored by Anna Olivieri. She's been working here for a long time and knows a lot. To be more precise, she knows everything. She accommodated the delegation from Cyprus and made arrangements with the fire inspector. I couldn't have done it without her support. Mr. Hale winked at Joseph. Joseph, don't look for anyone else. Anna is perfect for the manager position. Joseph smiled. All right, let it be Anna. I'll sign the order tomorrow. Mr. Hale, Amaris, don't say anything to her yet. We'll congratulate her tomorrow in a solemn atmosphere with flowers. Amaris, the personnel department will draw up all the necessary documents for your university about your internship here. Now you can rest with a clear conscience for the remaining time before classes. Amaris nodded to both men and left the office. Joseph, we're going to have a vacancy for an administrator. We could give Ms. Turner a promotion. Young people are welcome. Oh, great. Announce it tomorrow. Mr. Hale, to both Anna and Amaris. The next morning, Joseph was about to start working when he received a call from Mr. Hale, informing him that Anna's appointment was well received, and they even opened a bottle of champagne to celebrate. As for Amaris, she has written a resignation statement. Why? Joseph didn't understand. Invite her to my office, please. Entering the office, Amaris squinted against the bright sun. She smelled pleasantly of perfume and something else tasty, as if she'd run into a pastry shop on the way in, and the spice odour hadn't yet fully faded from her hair. Have you decided to quit? Yes. Why so suddenly? Joseph spoke to her with the tone of a superior, and that tone frightened her. You don't like the new position or the salary? Mr. Witt, I like everything, but I need something closer to home, she said aloud. And away from you, she added to herself. The only thing closer to home is the grocery store. You're going to work there? That would be better for me. Joseph stood up, walked around the office a bit, and stopped behind her back. He put his palms on the back of the chair, as if about to say something to her, but immediately backed away and returned to his desk. He took out a pack of cigarettes, lit one, and didn't try to coax or argue with her. He was confused and furious at the same time, but still signed the paper and held it out to Amaris. Well, all right. And all the best, Miss Turner. Goodbye. Amaris rose resolutely from her seat, walked silently to the door, and disappeared. In the corridor, she made an incredible effort not to look back. She was in a disgusting mood, and her soul felt scratched, not by cats, but by whole tigers. Joseph finished smoking, walked around the office, then washed his face with cold mineral water from a bottle and went to the window. There was no trace left of his good mood. I don't understand. What's wrong? Joseph twirled the pen in his hands and looked questioningly at Mr. Hale. What's so incomprehensible? The whole staff here is discussing your affair. Joseph jumped up in his chair like a stung man. Discussing what? Joseph, you are being such a baby. Everyone thinks you have a romance. How else can one explain your eccentric antics about her sudden internship as a manager here? No one believes in good things. Sorry. And you don't believe too, right? Joseph threw down his pen and stood up. Mr. Hale brushed an invisible dust speck off the lapel of his jacket and grinned. I don't believe it either, because I have eyes and some experience. Sure, you don't have an affair yet, but the fact that sparks are flying between you is noticeable. And not just to me. Joseph walked around the table and sat down next to Mr. Hale. Of course, he was a mature and wise man, but to this grey-haired man, he was and would remain a kid. She quit. Mr. Hale laughed and clapped Joseph on the shoulder. So that's why you're sitting so gloomy. So what if she quit? It's not like she went to the moon. What kind of young people are you? You like to dramatize everything. Amaris started to get ready for the interview from the very morning. "Amaris, don't fidget, or you won't get your hair done. You'll get a burn." "Come on, Megan, it's already great. I just have to be on time." Amaris glanced at her watch for the umpteenth time. "There's plenty of time before your big moment. After all, I'll give you a ride." Megan laughed and tugged Amaris's warm curl. "And don't worry, you have a good recommendation. Besides, you're not applying for a high position, just a hotel receptionist." "Done. Just a little more hairspray and—" She stepped back to spritz Amaris's hair. "You're ready. Let's go." It was hot outside and the air conditioner in the car hummed as if it felt the heat and was reluctant to fulfill its duties. Unfortunately, despite Megan's driving skills, Amaris was late for the interview. On the way, the girls got stuck in a traffic jam, waiting 40 minutes until an accident ahead was cleared and the damaged car removed from the road. However, the interview went well. Amaris discussed her work experience, her studies at the university and medical courses, and inquired about the schedule. Confident she'd made a good impression, she said goodbye and ran into Joseph in the parking lot. "Hi," Joseph said softly and came closer to her. "Hi." Amaris blinked confused, averting her gaze as she began to blush. She felt as if her puppy-like delight was written all over her face. Unseemly, she thought, she should have controlled her emotions. But she couldn't, and she was utterly flustered. "I'll take you home if you like." He opened the front door of the saloon, and Amaris sat down. Joseph closed the door behind her, walked around the car and sat in the driver's seat. When he closed the door, he turned to the girl, looked into her eyes, and unable to resist his attraction, he took her hand, and Amaris did not resist. They kissed for a long time in his car. Joseph, who had never done anything like this before, thought that only teenagers could act so foolishly. Not him, a grown man, a director, and generally a respectable person. But it turned out that kissing in the car was good and pleasant, and neither the cramped interior nor the gear shift lever interfered. And then he drove her to his home. He kept kissing her and holding her tightly, as if afraid she might run away from him again. When he was nearly out of kisses, he picked her up and carried her to his bedroom. In the semi-darkness of the curtained room, they managed to knock over a small table that stood neatly in the middle. A few times, out of habit, Amaris addressed him Mr. Witt, which Joseph found terribly amusing. In the morning, of course, she overslept on her first day at the new place. She rushed around the unfamiliar room, wrapped in sheets up to her chin, red as a lobster, looking for her scattered belongings. When Amaris finally realized she would never make it in time, she sat on a high bar stool and began to swallow hot tears. Joseph, genuinely unable to understand her distress, walked over and ran his hands through her hair. "What are you so upset about?" "I don't think I'll get the job now." Her voice was full of tears. "And you've decided this is a good time to indulge in gloomy thoughts?" "What thoughts?" Amaris didn't understand, brushing away the tears that kept rolling down her cheeks. "Gloomy ones. By the way, there is much work on the coast." Joseph spoke quite like Amaris's friend Megan. "And besides, Hope and I have talked and decided that you should live with us," he added abruptly. "With me, Hope, and our kitten. If you really want to, you can get a job, but I'd prefer you to stay home and keep studying." Amaris opened her mouth to object, but changed her mind and buried her nose in the man's chest. From there, she said with a huff, "Joseph, you're a terribly possessive man." Joseph laughed and thought with pleasure, "Well, to hell with it. Yes, I'm possessive, and a tyrant in some ways, and you'll have to put up with my overbearing ways, tolerate my frequent trips, and sometimes entertain my mother, who will certainly ask you your zodiac sign. And she'll also take you on long tours around her garden, bragging about her flower bed and telling you funny stories from my childhood. Amaris laughed too, and Joseph leaned over, kissing everything in turn, her lips, her nose, her cheeks, still wet with tears, her neck, and her dishevelled blonde hair. Amaris and Hope, puffing diligently, were decorating a tall, almost ceiling-high Christmas tree. The tree was fresh, smelling of fragrant needles and the approaching new year. The kitten watched their movements from his hiding place, waiting impatiently for a chance to get closer and steal the shiniest ornament without being seen. With the dexterity of a circus gymnast, Amaris climbed a stepladder and placed a big red star atop the Christmas tree. They had spent 2 hours decorating it, and once finished, they began hanging electric garlands around the house. In the evening, as soon as it got dark, they planned to light up the tree, build a tent nearby, and wait for Santa Claus. Amaris looked around the house and said deliberately, "Hope, I think we've done a great job. Santa will definitely love it." "Uh-huh. Can we make a wish right now?" Amaris thought for a moment, then grabbed the girl under her armpits and began spinning her around the room. "I think one little wish can be made right now, without waiting for Grandma and Daddy."
"Then I'll do it first,"
shouted Joseph from the threshold, having suddenly returned. Amaris and Hope rushed to meet him.
"Now, ladies, you are obliged to help me. My hands are full and I'm tired of pasta and pizza in Italy."
Joseph stood surrounded by packages, bags and cartons, with a panting cab driver dragging more behind him. The cab driver didn't look happy, probably because he had to haul some purchases. "We were waiting for you tonight. You have a meeting with that Michelangelo of yours," Amaris said, still forgetting the Italian architect's name.
"I couldn't miss half of the wonderful holiday, especially when not only my favourite daughter is in my house, but also my beloved wife and mischievous kitten,"
Joseph exclaimed as he picked Hope up in his arms and kissed her on top of her head. Everyone laughed joyfully. After a long break, it was the first Christmas in the house as it should be, filled with joy, laughter, love, and hope.